Hey, y'all. Welcome to Questions You Didn't Ask. Did you know that this very spot could be showcasing your business or event? Whether it's an audio ad on our podcast or a visual ad on our new YouTube station, or even both, we've got the space for you. Niasha Fray Consulting is reaching a growing audience of over 1,000 leaders who are passionate about health equity, social justice, and civil rights activism. These are professionals just like you, working across higher education, research, healthcare, nonprofit, government, and even public health sectors. If you're ready to get your message in front of a dedicated and engaged audience, send me an email at niashafrayconsultingllc@gmail.com. Let's talk about how we can help you connect with the people who need to hear about your services and products that advance health equity and wellness. Don't miss out. Get in the mix and let's make an impact together. This series is titled Ready or Not, the real talk Black and Latino communities need. Welcome to Questions You Didn't Ask. Today, I want to speak from a place of honesty and humility. I'm here to share my thoughts and questions about the connections and sometimes disconnections between Black or African American and Latino or Hispanic communities in the fight for health equity. These are hard topics, but they are necessary if we want to create lasting solutions to inequality, prejudice, and oppression. As your host, I am to foster conversations that challenge the status quo. This requires us to think boldly and embrace innovation, even when the path forward is unclear. We'll explore tough truths and work to build understanding across cultural divides. Together, we'll face what oftentimes feels like a mountain of challenges. Because what else can we do with the time we have but use it to push for a more just world? Let me start by sharing a bit about my journey. I'm an African American woman from the Triangle region of North Carolina, Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. These are three distinct cities, by the way, just neighboring and forming a unique community in the heart of North Carolina. Growing up, I lived in a world that was divided largely along Black and white racial lines. Latinos were a small, often overlooked presence in our community. This changed when I moved to East Harlem for graduate school. East Harlem, also known as Spanish Harlem or El Barrio, is a vibrant community with a rich Afro-Latino and Black Latino presence. For the first time, I encountered people who looked like me, but spoke Spanish as their first language. I saw Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and others whose African heritage was unmistakable. This was a revelation, an embodied reminder of the transatlantic slave trade that left its imprint across the Americas. Afro-Latinos, who often share African and Latino ancestry, have a unique and underrepresented history in the United States. While 24% of Latinos in the U.S. identify as Afro-Latino, many still feel invisible. Historically, figures like Arturo Alfonso Schomburg, a key thinker of the Harlem Renaissance, worked tirelessly to highlight the shared struggle of Black people globally. More recently, celebrities like Zoe Saldana and Cardi B have embraced their Afro-Latino heritage, raising visibility for this diverse group. Yet, Afro-Latinos often face dual discrimination from both the Black and Latino communities, compounding their challenges in navigating society. Despite this rich history and shared struggle, tensions between Black and Latino communities persist. My grandmother's experience in Nevada offers a personal glimpse into this divide. She shared with me how Latino shopkeepers treated her with suspicion and disrespect, making her feel unwelcome. Her frustration stemmed from the fact that African Americans had paved the way for so many civil rights victories, including those benefiting immigrants of color. Yet, she felt that her own dignity was disregarded. Her experience is not unique. Studies show that anti Black sentiments exist among some Latinos, particularly when their status as Americans feels threatened. Research from the American Political Science Review highlights how Latinos, like other groups, may distance themselves from Black people to gain social acceptance in America. This tension often undermines potential alliances. Yet, it's crucial to remember that such sentiments are not universal and are heavily influenced by structural inequities and societal pressures. These divisions have also become visible in politics. The 2024 election highlighted a significant shift in Latino voting patterns, with many moving toward conservative candidates. For example, Latino support for Trump increased by 28 points in Nevada and over 30 points in Michigan. This shift raises pressing questions about the future of solidarity among communities of color and the role of shared struggles in shaping political priorities. At the same time, Black and Latino communities face many of the same barriers. African Americans are 42% more likely to have hypertension and 59% more likely to be obese than white Americans, while Latinos are 21% more likely to have diabetes and 20% more likely to be obese than white Americans. Both groups are disproportionately uninsured, with 16.1% of Latinos and 10.6% of African Americans lacking coverage in recent years. These shared health inequities are rooted in systemic racism and structural barriers that impact both groups. Discrimination doesn't stop at healthcare. African Americans continue to face over policing and mass incarceration. Similarly, Latinos experience the criminalization of immigration, with over 1 million deportations in recent years. Both groups are disproportionately impacted by police violence and racial profiling. These shared struggles demand unified advocacy, yet systemic forces often seek to divide us. Fortunately, history offers examples of solidarity. The Latino civil rights movement, inspired by African American leaders, saw figures like Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta championing workers' rights while recognizing the connections between racial and economic justice. Today, organizations like the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and the League of United Latin American Citizens continue to advocate for equity across racial and ethnic lines. Leaders like Justice Sonia Sotomayor and Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson embody the possibilities of bridging these divides. As we move through this series, I want us to explore these complexities together. Why do divisions persist despite shared struggles? How can we foster genuine solidarity to tackle health inequities and other systemic challenges? To help us answer these questions, I've invited a guest I deeply admire, a truth teller and bridge builder, who will help us navigate these important conversations. Let this be the beginning of a journey toward deeper understanding, stronger alliances, and a future where equity and justice are realities for all. It is my absolute honor to introduce today's guest, a woman whose tireless advocacy and unwavering passion have made an extraordinary impact, Julissa Soto. As a CEO and founder of Julissa Soto Latino Health Equity Consulting, Julissa has dedicated over 2 decades to championing health equity for Latino immigrant communities and underserved populations. Her transformative work has been recognized not only in Colorado, but across the nation, earning her numerous awards, including the 2024 Minority Owned Business of the Year from the Southern Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce and the Immunization Champion Award from the Association of Immunization Managers. Julissa's efforts have redefined how public health initiatives engage with marginalized communities. Through groundbreaking programs like Latinos Unidos for vaccines and her signature Vaccine Sundays, she has ensured that thousands of people have access to life saving health resources, delivered in culturally resonant and community centered ways. Her leadership extends to policy as well, where she serves on influential boards such as the Health Equity Commission for the Colorado Department of Public Health and the Behavioral Health Equity Steering Committee for SAMHSA, driving systemic change. Julissa's story is one of resilience, innovation, and bold action. An immigrant from Tijuana, Mexico, she channeled her lived experiences into a lifelong mission to dismantle barriers and address social determinants of health. Her ability to build coalitions and inspire action has made her a trusted voice on platforms such as TEDx Mile High and media outlets like NPR and Time Magazine. Her impact goes beyond public health. Julissa's work fosters empowerment, equity, and inclusion, embodying the values that create lasting societal change. Her accolades, like the 2023 Distinguished Service Award from the Colorado University Anschutz Medical Campus, reflect a career dedicated to improving lives and inspiring others to join the fight for justice. Today, we are privileged to hear from a vibrant leader and fearless advocate. Julissa Soto, thank you for joining us. It is a true honor to have you here. In your own words, tell our audience more about who you are and where you come from.
Well, good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depends on where you're at. My name is Julissa Soto, and I am an independent equity consultant and live in Colorado, but I was born and raised in Mexico. I am also host of my radio show, Prevención es Salud con Julissa Soto, also do commercials for Telemundo, and one of the commissioners of the state of Colorado.
Impressive, impressive, impressive. How did you get here to the US? You said that you were from Mexico. Where in Mexico? And how did you get here?
Well, I was born south of Mexico, so close by Acapulco, and my hometown is called Uruapan, and my state is Michoacan. I came here 27 years ago. I came to United States, yeah, approximately 27 years ago, crossed the border in the trunk of a car. So I was 16 hours in that trunk from Tijuana, Mexico. I crossed the border, San Isidro, and then went to San Diego, from San Diego to Colorado. And that's where my journey begins. But I want to say to everyone that I didn't want to come to United States. It was my ex-husband who brought me here.
Mm, that's very interesting. We're
Yeah.
going to, yeah, we're going to jump into a lot of that because I think that there are a number of people, including myself, that have had to confront some commonly misconceived assumptions about why people from Mexico, Central America, South America, Latin America even want to come here, like, and how they get here. I mean, you said something compelling about being in the trunk of a car for 16 hours. That's something that most Americans cannot even fathom. So, as you tell your story and as your story has unfolded over the years, what are some of the most commonly misconceived assumptions that Americans have about Latino immigrants that you have encountered?
Well, I have encountered a lot of racism and discrimination, and I think myths about immigrants coming to United States. A lot of us don't want to be here, but somebody else brought us here. And when you're married, when you're from Central America or Mexico, you must listen to your man. Your man says, we're going to this country, we're moving, you move, you don't ask the questions, right? And once you arrive to United States, to America, people in here assume that immigrants want to take the jobs of Americans, that we all came here and apply for welfare, that we all came here and we want free rights. And I'm always talking to the community and educating professionals about, no, first of all, immigrants like myself cannot apply for benefits like food stamps, cash, or TANF. We cannot apply for those benefits because we are not legal in this country, number one. And number two, the government asks us not to ask for any type of benefits. If not, we're not going to fix our papers, right? Or it's going to hurt our citizenship. And that's what the community don't know. Also, what the community out there or the professionals don't know is that once we get here, the government does give us, and they know that we're undocumented, and they give us an 19 number, which is very different to a social security number. With a social security number, you can work. With a 19 number, you cannot do anything but file taxes. And once we file taxes, the government doesn't give us anything back. They keep our taxes, right? But it's not to their convenience to say, oh, yeah, we're giving 19 numbers to all these undocumented people, and they're not taxpayers, and da when they know that we are taxpayers because an IT number exists. Those are the myths, and those are the things that I had to encounter, and sometimes get really upset that people don't know what they don't know, but they assume things about my community.
If you're enjoying the show as much as we love creating it, consider showing your support by buying us a cup of coffee. Visit buymeacoffee.com/Niasha Fray O. That's buymeacoffee.com/Naisha Fray O. All one word. Each cup is just $5, and every single one helps us continue to produce, develop, and sustain the high quality content you've come to expect from Questions You Didn't Ask. Thank you for your continued support, and let's keep the conversation going. Julissa, this is so eye opening. I know every time that I talk to you, you always shed light and help me to become less and less ignorant. Okay. Ignorant of the experience of immigrants, ignorant of the experience of Latino people, uncovering and helping me to better understand even the different regions and areas and motivators of Mexico and the journey and all of that stuff. So that's one of the main reasons why I wanted you to be on this show, is because you were always so clear about explaining things in a way that, I believe my listeners will be able to understand. Tell me a little bit more about, what does racism and discrimination look like for the Latino community in particular?
Oh my goodness, how does it look like going to the grocery store and being very afraid that somebody who's English speaker or from the Anglo community, we usually get discriminated by the Anglo community and not other communities, to go to you and say, well, go back to your country. And I am like amazed by, go back to your country, what that really means. When this was Mexico, and I know that everyone knows that this was Mexico, and they steal our land from us, which they tend to do. They tend, the Anglo community, the people in America, they tend to go to other countries, they tend to steal from other countries, and then they put it like they're the saviors, right? For me, it has discrimination as well and alive. And I always tell everyone that when they call us intruders, I always say to them, you stole 7 states from us. Who is the intruder here? Let's just be real. And that's why I'm here in these podcasts, because I knew that I was going to express myself the way I feel and the way things are right now with the new. And now with the new election, I always tell everyone, I got out of a domestic violence relationship, but here I go for another 4 years in a mental abusive relationship, because our president, our leader, will talk about us in a way that hurts us, not only physically, but also mentally. So, race and discrimination is well and alive in this country. What I'm totally amazed by that is that, again, this was not Colorado, this was Colorado. Texas was not Texas, it was Texas. New Mexico, Wyoming. No, it was not Wyoming, it was Wyoming, right? But now we have to mention these states in a different way because it's an American land. But, every time I walk in this land, I'm like, I'm walking in my own land. When people say go back to your country, I'm like, I am in my country. I have dual citizenship. I'm a Mexican and I'm also American. Take that.
Take it, take it, and make sure you chew on it and think about it. Don't just let those be words that float from one side of your head to the other, but actually think on it. I just think that it's also really interesting that you brought up the conversation of this I-10 number and being undocumented. Tell us a little bit more about coming here in the trunk of a vehicle, getting here, and then the paperwork and process that's involved in being documented with an I-10 number that they know you're here, they know that you're working, they take your taxes, but then calling you undocumented. Can you help that process? I mean, it's about clear as mud to me. And there's a lot of propaganda in our media and our political environment that makes it even more confusing and divisive. Can you share us a little bit more about what that process is like when people cross the border and then they have to go through this process?
Yes. First of all, to cross the border, even being undocumented, you have to pay thousands of dollars because you pay the guy that is helping you cross the border. Their name is Coyote, in English, Coyote. So the Coyote, you have to pay for him because he's the one leading the way. You have to pay around $5,000 to $8,000 to get to United States undocumented. Then once you cross the border and you're here, you go and get with a CPA or anyone that does your taxes. You go and get an IT number. That IT number, you're told to be used only to do taxes, not to work. So when you come to United States and you don't have a social security number, you either go out there and hustle a social security number. Some people are selling social security numbers, and that's another couple hundreds. And in the meantime, you're like, okay, I want to be legit. I've been filing taxes. So how can I become a citizen? And yes, to get a consultation with an immigration lawyer, it costs you $200 to $300 an hour just to get a consultation. And then for them to take your case and say, okay, you have a good case. Let's try to see if you can be legit. It's around $20,000 to $30,000 to become legal in this country. So when people say to me, why they don't become legal? Well, very few of us have 20 to 30,000 to spare. And that's one case. What about if you have five undocumented people in your family? They don't charge you per family, they charge you per person, right? So imagine all the money that they need to spend is super stressful. For me to become a US citizen, I was illegal and I was undocumented for 12 years approximately. So it took me forever to become a US citizen and making payments forever, like around 25,000 I had to pay for me to become a US citizen and finally be a US citizen in this land. And when you become a US citizen, when you think, oh my God, I made it, I'm doing everything right, you still get called wetback, you still get called beaner, you still get called undocumented, you still get called illegal, you still get called tortilla flipper. So I have heard it all, my friend.
Again, I mean, this is why this show is called Questions You Didn't Ask. A lot of people don't have these conversations. They don't take the time to calm themselves, put the rhetoric behind them, and speak to a person with a different experience that they know nothing about. We're all, especially as Americans, I can speak for, concerned about our own personal struggles, and we've got plenty. And it's difficult for us to make time and space in our heart and in our lives to actually listen to what people are going through and to recognize our own privilege of being born here, of being here for generations, and not having to spend this inordinate amount of money in order to just be here. I mean, that's crazy to me that you get an I-10 number and they say, don't work but pay taxes.
Yes.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, when I was told that, and I'm like, then why do I need this number if I cannot work with this number? And they say, because the government wants you to file taxes. And if you want to become a US citizen one day, you better do what the government is telling you to do. And I was like, okay, that doesn't make sense. But, it's kind of interesting to me that everyone and a lot of people are coming after the immigrants. And I'm always questioning this, why we don't go to the big corporations that they're exploiting big cheap labor. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like, why
yes.
we're not going after them instead of the poor immigrants that don't speak English, that they're undocumented, they're afraid. So why you keep hiring them if we bother you so much?
Mhm.
And then with the IT number, many years that I didn't get a penny back. Well, I
Mhm.
and then now that I'm successful, I'm definitely never gonna get a penny back because now it's getting worse for me, right? But
Right.
in the old times when I was really poor with two kids, single mom, I never got that money back because the government keeps it, but they don't tell you that.
Mhm. What do you think are some of the misconceived notions that immigrants have about America before they get here?
Oh my goodness, we all come here like I think smiling because we hear the stories that Americans throw dollars in the streets. Those are the stories that we hear. And then the
Mhm.
Americans throw money in the streets, and then they have so many programs that you don't have to buy food, that you can get food for free. And also that is the land of the freedom, so that you can speak and say whatever you want to say. And that's for sure. I know, no, because when I did that, I ended up being arrested. So I tell everyone that American dream becomes a nightmare, like it's not a dream anymore. This is a nightmare. Um, you know, I have been in United States for 27 years, and a lot of the people tell me, especially immigrants, you're successful, you're good. And what they just don't understand that just not because I'm successful, that doesn't mean that I'm exempt from being
Mm.
discriminated and for being treated wrong. And what they don't understand is that now I have a bigger responsibility because I am the voice of the voiceless. So I'm speaking for them.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, so many things I want to ask just based off of that. Where do you think people get these ideas that we throw money in the street? Like, I'm thinking, yeah, sometimes people are standing on the corner and we'll put money in their cup, but we're not throwing money in the street. Where do you think some of those ideas and perceptions come from?
When you are raised in a little village in Mexico and you're really really poor, somebody from the states come to our village and they might have $500 or $1,000, right? For us, that's a baller. That's like, damn, that's a lot of money. $1,000, and transfer that into pesos. Oh my goodness. So they come to our little town with $1,000. They show off, they're looking good and everything else. So we're like, oh my God, we want that. But what they forget to say is that $1,000 doesn't take you that far in United States, number one. And number two, that you have to work day and night. Most of us from the immigrant community work Sunday to Sunday to make it in this country because we have to work 10 times harder than the white folks. The white folks sometimes don't even do nothing and they get promoted. And I'm like, what
Say
the
that.
hell? Why is it that that's happening, right? And we're over here busting our ass for somebody, for one person to see us. And
Mhm.
that's inequities in there. That's unfair, but that's the way that's the reality in United States. So we get that from people. They come from the States and then go and pretend like they're ballers in our little hometown. And because we don't know better, girl, we see somebody with $1,000. My God, that's heaven. Remember, we make $100 a month.
Mm. Mm. I think that that is really important for people to understand that, yes, there is a lot of people, it's like this whole social media world where everything is just kind of like, look at me. But nobody has really taken the time to be honest about how they really feel and what they're really going through, and how much of that is real and how much of that is just perception, and how fake people can be, right? I mean, I remember I was fortunate to go to Malawi, Africa, and I was there on a work trip, and I was speaking with some professionals there, and getting really a good chance to get to know people. And there was a gentleman who was just really enamored with the United States and opportunities in the United States. And I was not there to necessarily discourage him. But when he started asking me questions about, income and salaries and this and that, I tried to be honest with him, and from his perspective, like you said, the exchange rate of those numbers just seemed phenomenal to him, right? And then I had to break it to him. And I said, "But rent is this much, and car notes are this much. And then you have to pay taxes. And then you have to," I said, "So what sounds like a lot of money quickly becomes no money." And so, we're even dealing that with that right now, dealing with inflation. The salaries that used to be considerable, comfortable, reasonable salaries for a professional to live on is laughable now. I remember a time when making $50,000 was a good salary. Now it's like you're barely making it. And it wasn't that long ago. And so that quick increase in cost of living, and the fact that rent and mortgage has never gone down in this country. We've never seen a decrease. We've never seen a discount. I was just at a board meeting and they were talking about how supporting families who have disabilities and challenges with mental health and substance use, there are certain things that they can leverage and get discounts on. But when people come to them and ask them for help with rent, housing, utilities, there is no opportunity to leverage, because Duke Energy or whoever your energy company is, the cost is what the cost is. And there's no opportunity to get a break on that. So even when you're talking about advocates who are there to help and assist, like you were talking about, some of people come back home and they tell stories about how, you can get assistance with this and you can get assistance with that. Well, there are limitations to that, a lot of limitations to that. How many organizations and nonprofits are out here that offer people free food, but you can only go once a month, right? And
Yeah,
it's not enough to feed your whole family. It's just enough to get through a few days out of the month. So there's so many misconceptions even within our own community, even within the United States, but then to add another border and another country and another culture and another exchange rate, the confusion just becomes a lot more thick. So now I want to ask you about, how did your experience as an immigrant lead you to fight for fair healthcare, health equity, and so on?
you know, um, coming to this country 27 years, crossed the border in the trunk of a car. When I came here, my ex-husband continued to treating me the way that he was treating me in Mexico, which he was beating me up once or twice a week. And the reason why it was because I didn't cook right or the house was not clean, things like that, right? So um when the last time that he beat me up, he sent me to the hospital. He broke my two legs and my two arms with a bat.
Mm,
And I went into a coma, and he fled to Mexico, and he's deported for life.
mm,
He was charged with assaulted in third degree, something like that. He had so many charges because the way he left me. So when I woke up at the hospital, I remember seeing my family, seeing everyone, and I was like, oh my God, I need to wake up. I need to go home. I'm going to get beat up because how long have I been here? And the nurse
Mm,
looked at me, and the nurse is like, don't worry, your husband Flynn, he's not here no more. You're gonna sleep for a couple days. And I was like, no, I cannot sleep. I'm not allowed to sleep. I need to go home. He's gonna beat me up. You don't understand. And then she was like, no, I do understand. He's no longer with you. So
mm,
I stay in the hospital, sleep for days, and then I started noticing how some of the providers will treat me and will
mm,
treat me with a lot of respect and dignity. And I
mhm,
was like, oh my goodness, when one day maybe I can help the community understand there is help out there and there is good people out there. And
mm,
then I got out of the hospital, and it was a journey just to get a job. And remember, I never worked in my life. I was undocumented. I was
mm,
uneducated, didn't speak a word in English when I came to United States. So my journey begins there with a lot of struggles. And I didn't understand what a primary care doctor was, or a
mm.
safety net clinic, or federal qualified health center. All what I knew is to run to the emergency room. So
Right.
when my kids were sick, and with an ear infection, I will run to the emergency room, and I will sit there for hours and hours and just see that they were taking other people before me. And now I understand the why, because those were emergencies and mine was not considered an emergency, right? So I was waiting there for hours and hours, and I was so frustrated. And I said, Lord, if you help me have some power, if you help me learn how to speak the language, be documented, get educated, please allow me to get all these things. And if you help me, I will dedicate my life to my community. And they said, be careful what you ask the Lord for, because he gave me that and more. Now I'm like, Lord, I have so much power that I don't know what to do with it. And I'm afraid, because they're coming after me now. Now, before I used to be a
Yes.
nobody. Now I'm a threat to those who know that I'm highly educated. I
Mm,
speak the language. I have my dual citizenship, so they're like, what? She survived all these
mhm,
barriers, right? So
mhm.
out of frustration of the system and not understanding the system, because I used to ask myself, if I don't know what a primary care doctor is, I bet that a lot of us don't know. If I
Right.
didn't know about a federal qualified health center, I bet most of my people don't know that. So that's why my passion of equity and being equitable and fighting the good fights out there. And just when people think I'm done, we cannot assume that immigrants and refugees know systems that in the first place they were never built for BIPOC communities.
No. No, they were not. We all had our own ways of health and healing out of necessity, especially in this country, and had to build them ourselves because no one was coming to save us, right? And we still hear that in our communities that no one is coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. Thank you for joining us on Questions You Didn't Ask with me, Niasha Fray, and my guest, Julissa Soto. Tune in next week as we continue our series, Ready or Not, the real talk Black and Latino communities need.